right? So I told you earlier, the one test anxiety strategy that's above all others. And you've already heard me mention this several times in this class today. Practice your test anxiety strategies, tactics, methods, and procedures during your entire pre-exam study period. Don't be one of those students that just say, well, during the exam, when I feel anxiety, I'm going to try this during the exam. The way that you're really able to work on managing test anxiety is by using the strategies, the techniques during your study period, during your practicing period, right? So while you're studying right now for the TOEFL or the IELTS, you're engaging in positive self-talk right now, or you're practicing using the palming technique or the differential relaxation techniques right now. You have lavender in your pocket right now. You're not whipping this stuff out on the exam and trying to figure out how to use it during the exam, which is crazy. These methods, these strategies, these solutions that I've talked about, the best way they're going to work is by practicing them during your study process, right? You can't just read about it and think that on the exam you're going to be able to do it. It doesn't work that way. Test anxiety strategies work well when you put them into effect at the start of your test preparation, not the start of the exam. Too many people put in their test anxiety strategies at the start of the exam, and that causes a big problem. So what I'm talking about here is the one strategy that affects all other strategies, all other solutions. So how to increase your overall score performance. What I'm talking about now is not necessarily anxiety. It is something that helps reduce anxiety. But what I'm talking about now relates to the difference between the students that do excellent and the students that do okay. So what differentiates top students? Number one, practice exams. There is a direct correlation between the amount of practice exams completed and the score that a student is able to attain. There's a direct correlation between those two things. And not just doing practice exams, but doing them the right way. There's a difference between doing a practice exam and doing a practice exam the right way. A big difference. It's sort of like what I talked about with number two, not just working hard. Top students understand that it's not about working hard, it's about working right. It's not about taking practice exams, it's about taking practice exams right. Number three, I talked about this earlier, active versus passive studying. I'm going to, when I end up uploading this recording into the course, I will put in some extra material that talks about active versus passive studying. Self-disciplined and self-motivated. Those are two big things that differentiate top students. They have a lot of self-discipline. And I've talked to you earlier about the effects of not having discipline. Not having discipline causes so many problems. Not being self-motivated causes so many problems. And then, of course, this one everybody knows, English level. Again, direct correlation between your English level and how well you can perform on the exam. There's a great video on YouTube by Dr. Joe Dispenza called How to Reprogram Your Mind. This helps a lot of students do well because, like I told you, for years, so many of you have been programming your mind in a certain way. You've been learning how to do test anxiety, or you have programmed yourself in a certain way to be able to perform on an exam. And very often what you have to be able to do is learn how to reprogram your mind. And so in this video on YouTube by Dr. Joe Dispenza, you can watch that video and learn more about that and how to do it. right? These are a couple of student questions. When I studied, I knew it all. Then I got on the test and nothing looked familiar. What happened? Right? One or two marathon sessions can give us a false sense of security. So, for example, what this is talking about is if you are, before the exam, if you're studying for 6 hours straight, 8 hours straight, the material becomes very, very familiar to you. And very often that gives students a false sense of security before they take the exam. And so to avoid this, you want to do shorter, more frequent study sessions, because when you do that, it makes sure that you're able to really test yourself the right kind of way. Doing long marathon sessions is not always the right way, or it doesn't always prepare you in the right way to perform on the exam. All right, so there's some last minute questions, and I will answer those last minute questions. I want to thank all of you for joining me today in this lecture on managing your test anxiety. I really hope that you learned a lot more about it, because this is something that affects your scores, and you have to be able to learn how to maintain it. So thank you very much for joining me. And I'm going to take a few more questions before we sign off.